Hello everyone, this is Daily Development, and today we're going to be going over a problem that was asked by Google. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so let's look at this problem. What we have is we're given a 2D matrix of ones and zeros where 1 represents land and 0 represents water. The grid is completely surrounded by water, and there is exactly one island. An island is a group of cells connected horizontally or vertically, but not diagonally. There is guaranteed to be exactly one island in this grid, and the island doesn't have water inside that isn't connected to the water around the island. Each cell has a side length of 1. So for example, let's take this island. In this case, these ones, right, make up one big island. And what we have to do is we have to calculate the perimeter. So let's start with this point right here, and let's try to calculate. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. All right. So the perimeter of this island equals to 14. And so what we have to do is we have to write a function. We will give a double array like this one, and it has to return the total perimeter. So in this case, it has to return 14. So as always, I will encourage all of you to pause the video, try to solve it yourself, and then come back to me. So if you haven't paused the video yet, do so now, because I'm going to be going over the solution. So let's take this island, and let's take this number 1 over here. What we have to do is we have to look on all 4 sides. We have to look left, we have to look up, we have to look to the right side, and we have to look to at the bottom. And we have to decide where are the edges of the island, right? So for example, let's look on the left side. So on the left side, we see a 0, there's a C. What that means is between 1 and 0, there has to be an edge, and that parameter will equal to 1. All right, so there you go. We have to build one. So there you go. That's the first parameter. Then let's look up. So on the up, we see number 1, which is land. So therefore, it's not a perimeter, it's just inside. So we skip the up. And now let's go to the right side. So right, we can see 0, which means that this is the edge. So we have to build, so then we have to add 1 to the parameter, right? So now we have 2. And then we have to look down. So in this case, there's nothing down, so there is no land at the bottom. So therefore, that's the third parameter there. So we have to use this logic on every single land. We have to look on the left side, on the right side, on the at the top, at the bottom, and see how many of them they don't have land, right? So if you don't have land, add 1 to the parameter. If there is land, then skip it. Just add 0, or parameter is not changed. And let's try to write this function now. Let's start with saying, let's start with calling function find perimeter. That takes an argument, that takes an array as an argument, right? Let's pass this for right now, and let's do array equals, so array equals this guy right here, and now let's just print find perimeter of the array. Now let's get back here. So the idea that we have to use is we need to first loop through the entire array, and we need to loop through every single land tile here and look at its left side, the top side, the right side, the bottom side, right? To judge on how many of what's the perimeter. So first thing I would like to do is let's make 4y in range of length of array. So the idea is, this is the y coordinate, right? So the first guy would be the y coordinate. So is this 0th y, first y, second y, third y. Then we need to get the x coordinate. For x in range. Right, so this, now the second one will give us an x, right? So now that we know what is the y, right? Let's say the y is 2. Now let's look through every single x. So let's look through this, and that. And Now we are looping through the whole array. Let's choose the land. Let's see if it's a land. So array, and as weird as it seems, in this case, y goes first and x goes second, because if you look at it, right, this is the 0th array. This is the first array. So by changing the first index, you're not changing the x, right? You're not changing the columns, you're changing the rows. So y is first and x is second in this case. And if this equals to 1, so in other words, if this is a land, then we want to do all the calculations, right? Right, so in here we know that this tile is a land. We just loop through, this will loop through every single land. And let's now create 4 more functions. First function, let's just call it has land at the top. And now we need to input array, and we also need y and x. So what I want this to return is, I want this to check. We're going to give this the array, we're going to give y and x, and I want it to check whether or not, look at the top side, does it have a land there? And if not, return false. So first thing that I would like to do is, so the top right, let's check if y equals 0, and just return false, right? So in other words, if it's the edge, right, there's nothing in the top, it's empty, right? There is no land here, nothing is above it. So then just return false. And if it's not y, if it's, let's say, here, then we have to actually check. Let's return array y minus 1 x, whether or not it is equal to 1, right? So let's take this 1, for example. What we're doing is we're just subtracting y, which will give us this guy right here. So we're just looking at the top of whatever x and y we have, right? We're just looking at the top of this point, at the top of this tile. And if the top of the tile is 1, return true. If the top of the tile is not 1, well then just return false. That means it's a C, it's not a land. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to pretty much copy this. Now we have to write 4 more. So now it has land at the bottom. And in this case, what we have to do is if y equals to length of array minus 1. So if it equals to length of array minus 1, then we know there's nothing on the bottom. We know it doesn't have any land on the bottom. So then just return false. Otherwise, let's just add y. So otherwise, just check. Does it have land or no? And then now we have to write 2 more functions. Let's make a function called has land on the right side, where we're gonna make, okay, so on the right side we have to add x, right? So if x equals to length of array of y, right? So in other words, we need to get this array. What's the maximum x, right? In this case, it's 0. Well, if we're here, then we know there's nothing on the right side. We know there's no land outside the boundaries. So again, if we go outside the boundaries, return false. If we're not outside the boundaries, then just +1, and see if next tile is a land or no. And now the 4th function I'd like to write is has land on the left side. And here I just check if x is 0. So if x is 0, right, we know there's nothing on the left side. We don't want to go outside the boundaries. And if it's not, subtract 1 from x and check if it's a 1. All right, so now we have these 4 functions. We have a function that checks whether or not it has a tile, it has like a land on the top, whether or not it has a land on the bottom, on the right, or on the left. Now what we have to do is let's create a parameter here. Parameter equals 0. And what we want to write is, so if has land at the top, array, and we give it y and x. That has if it does not, right? So in other words, if it doesn't have land on the top, that means we have to increment parameter by 1. Therefore, that means that's an edge. That side is the edge. So we have to add that. Now, let's copy this actually and write this 4 times. So now, if it has land at the bottom, again, add 1. Oh, sorry, if it doesn't have, right? And if it doesn't have land on the right side, add 1. And if it doesn't have land on the left side, add 1. In this case, it just goes through, again, we're just looping through every single tile, every single land tile, every single one that says 1. And we're checking its nearby, its adjacent tiles. Right now, currently, if we run this, well, we need to actually, of course, create a return parameter. So we have to return parameter. Now if we run this, okay, so it gives 14. Okay, so we solved the Google interview question today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please put thumbs up. It helps me in YouTube algorithm, and also subscribe. And see you later.